Okay, got it floating here in neutral position. That means parallel. And what you want to see is for it to come pretty close to back to that location. That's pretty good. Okay, so that's the vertical bearings. Now the horizontal bearings, or the axial bearings. Right now I have it set to about 0.4 grams of anti-skate weight. And what you want to do is see it come back nice and smooth. No glitchy stuff. Right here, the anti-skate gets pretty weak on this design because it's just a little arm inside of the cueing arm here that pushes against a pin in the bottom, pointing down out of the bottom of the yoke, and this arm pushes against that and applies a slight weight that pulls the arm back this way because centrifugal force is trying to pull the arm this way, and if you didn't have any anti-skate, it would just skate toward the center of the record. So that's set by this adjustment right here. Now when I got this tone arm, both sets of bearings were bad, and it was real glitchy. They were brindled and had grime in them, and it was the way that they designed this arm. But I took it apart and cleaned all of that up. And also, the cueing arm on this tone arm was originally made out of plastic, and they tend to, over time, crack right here and right over here, and this one was indeed cracked. But I found a company that made a replacement out of milled aluminum and then anodized black. So this arm is really getting an upgrade. Ceramic hybrid bearings instead of steel, and that way it's got very little friction in any plane, vertical or horizontal. And then the solid aluminum cueing arm here, is much, it's a sonic improvement over the base. It's much more controlled with this upgrade. That was the most expensive upgrade right there. The bearings cost me less than $40, and I had those custom made. The wiring cost me about $60, but this cost me $120. So that was the biggest upgrade next to the wire. Now the biggest sonic difference will be the wiring. It's Silver Lutz wire, Zalfino, that goes all the way from the DIN connector all the way to the cartridge clips that connect to the back of the cartridge. No connection here at the end of the tone arm like you normally see. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited to get this moving along. Now I've got to put the wiring back in it and hook it all up and test it, get it adjusted. That's the purpose of this. This scale right here is for adjusting the stylus overhang. And for this particular cartridge, that's 18 millimeters. So you would adjust the cartridge backward and forward until the stylus comes right to 18. And that's your stylus overhang. Now once you get that set, that determines your arc. Then you have to come to these 2 points right here, and you line the stylus up with this point right here that's circled. And the cantilever should be parallel to these lines. Then you move over here to this location, and you do it again. Make sure that your stylus is aligned parallel with this grid pattern. Once you get that adjusted, and that adjusted, you go back and forth between the 3 points until they're all perfect. Then you know that you've got the cartridge aligned correctly to track the groove. Now what you've got to do is adjust what's called the vertical tracking angle, and that is done by first adjusting the tone arm so it's parallel with the record. And you want to use an average size record because they're thin and they can be thick, and you want to adjust, you know, somewhere in the middle, so that if you're playing a thick album, now if you play a lot of master recordings and you want that to be your best edge, put a master recording on there and adjust your vertical tracking angle to that. But it's not a precise science. You know, there are some turntables that have what's called active VTA, where it adjusts with laser based on the position to the album, and those are very expensive turntables. But this one just about a happy medium. And then you've got a set screw here in the base that loosens up so you can adjust the yoke up or down to get that parallel. And once you get that right, close, then what I do is I use an album that has good sonic qualities or a test record, and adjust with an O-scope, test equipment, or adjust by ear. I'm pretty good. I can adjust by ear because I know how the music's supposed to sound. But anyways, that's your basic adjustment for a cartridge. Now, if you don't have, you first got to start when you're adjusting your weight. You set this for balance, where the tone arm floats parallel to the platter. And then once you get that set up, then you can use the gauge on the back here. You set it to 0 and then put the appropriate weight on. In my case, I run about 1.5 to 1.7 grams of weight, and then you set the anti-skate for the same thing, 1.5, 1.7, whatever you set this for. So that's your basic setup for a tone arm. Now I had to modify this a little bit because with this particular cartridge, the weight was too close to the yoke. So what I did there was added 1.5 gram piece of stainless steel in between the cartridge and the head shell, which added 1.5 grams of weight, which caused me to have to put the weight further back to get that balance we were talking about, and boom, problem solved. Now this cartridge is perfect for this tone arm, and I can't wait to hear how it sounds.